to our national security. But fourth, go to the end of this contention where they tell you that these tips can help journalism and the freedom of the press. Observe that we're not actually debating about the freedom of the press in this round. The resolution restricts us to freedom of speech, therefore you're really not going to analyze this argument overall. But with that being said, go to the second contention on minorities. There's going to be three main responses here. First, go to subpoint A. Observe that this argument is non-unique. Self-help programs are already in place to provide channels for minorities to discuss their personal issues. But second, and along the same line of thinking, these programs, whether online or in person, provide privacy, not free speech, or not anonymity, because privacy is the Fourth Amendment. We're not actually going to discuss it in the round. The round restricts us to the First Amendment. Privacy deals with the Fourth. For example, if I'm chatting with Manush on Facebook, that's privacy, but if I post on her wall, that's free speech, and that's anonymity. But third, our opponents never actually impact this argument, so don't evaluate until they actually provide you a comparative analysis between anonymous versus non-anonymous self-help. Furthermore, they don't show you how anonymous self-help actually helps these minorities. They don't impact it into how it affects minorities in the first place. But with that being said, go to their second subpoint on speaking out against the majority. Throughout this round, Manush and I are going to argue that accountability is much more important than anything my opponents bring up. Upholding the concept of an anonymous society makes it very hard for communities to move forward. Anonymity makes it impossible to hold people accountable for their actions, and that's going to end up outweighing there. According to David Davenport, accountability requires those responsible for any misconduct to be identified and brought to justice. However, if people remain anonymous, by definition, they cannot be identified, making it impossible to hold them accountable. Internet-based crimes such as hacking, virus writing, denial of service attacks, credit card fraud, harassment, and identity theft are increasing, and already damage estimates are measured in billions of dollars per year, but the human cost in terms of ruined reputations, loss of trust, and general deterioration in morals is immeasurable. That's going to end up outweighing any of the minority harms they provide you. But finally, my opponents argue that anonymity is crucial to democracy. However, we would argue that accountability lies at the very heart of the democratic tradition and is crucial to the continued stability of a free and fair society. With anonymity, we lose that important aspect of the democratic system, leading to more crime and an increased number of victims unable to obtain justice. This links directly to our second contention. We tell you that super PAC donors are bad because they're anonymous. They're not accountable for the money they pour into the election, and therefore the general electorate doesn't know who influences elections and where their vote is going to, and for all these reasons we urge a neg ballot.
Opponents ready?
Yes.
Judges ready? Okay, I believe I have first question.
Yeah.
We talk about how anonymous tips are less credible and thereby less looked into. But nobody actually forces you to become anonymous. So if you want credibility and if you want to be more successful, then you can choose to reveal your identity, don't you think?
Right, but you're telling us that anonymous tips are crucial at whistleblowing, but in the actual real-world example where 83 auditors spent significantly less money for anonymous tips, they're not actually going to be successful at exposing this fraud in the government.
No, we're telling you that those anonymous whistleblowers won't even exist without anonymity in the first place. So it's basically your benefits that you talk about don't really exist without anonymity.
Okay, I can have a question?
Sure.
So regarding our first contention, you respond by telling us that there's other forms of bullying and that they're not covered under this, right? So just because there's other forms of bullying, how does that outweigh the fact that anonymous bullying is going to be the most harmful?
No, we tell you that anonymous bullying is not the most harmful because the majority of cyberbullying doesn't actually happen anonymously anyway.
But given that half of teens have been cyberbullied, doesn't that outweigh?
No, we agree that, okay, half of teens may have been cyberbullied, but that's not necessarily because of anonymity. It's because of malicious bullies, and we told you that 87% of those cyberbullying happens on Facebook with real identities, so why is that linked with anonymity?
Well, that's not what we're directly impacting here. We're telling you that anonymous speech online is directly going to be more harmful. We have 3 warrants for this. And even if there's more bullying happening in person, the fact that anonymous bullying that's online is more harmful is still going to be the bigger impact.
Can you give us the evidence why anonymous bullying is more harmful?
Okay, yeah, we have a couple warrants for this. First is Max Planck, who tells you that through social psychology research, finds that people are more aggressive when their identity isn't exposed. But we have 2 other warrants. Kevin Turbert, who tells you that anonymous cyberbullying is more dangerous, and Fabio Seco tells you the exact same thing. These are all from Case.
No, we agree. We think that psychological reasons of how people become more aggressive can't really prove to us why anonymity brings tangible harms. But let me ask you a different question. You talk about individuals can't be accountable because of anonymity and thereby fraud and illegal activities and crime increases. But is fraud and those criminal activities, are they protected by the First Amendment?
The First Amendment doesn't pertain to fraud or anything like that. The First Amendment is not about fraud or anything. It's about freedom of speech, or the different freedoms protected under our Constitution.
So basically, today's debate is about the protection of the harms and benefits
Right.
of the protection of the First
So
Amendment.
just because fraud is illegal in a different sense under a different law doesn't mean the First Amendment specifically doesn't protect it.
No, we're saying that you just agreed to us that the First Amendment protection of anonymity doesn't protect those illegal activities.
I didn't agree to that. I said there are laws.
How does the First Amendment protection of anonymity protect
The
those
First
illegal
Amendment
activities?
doesn't address fraud at all. There are laws that directly address fraud, that directly make fraud illegal, or directly make hate speech, like I said, illegal, but those aren't the First Amendment.
So how is it linked with the First Amendment if
What do you
it
mean?
doesn't protect those illegal activities?
Well, fraud is not our argument.
Oh, you talked about fraud and crime and illegal activities.
Oh, we tell you that the loss of accountability makes people more, increases the, instances of fraud. And that the loss of accountability is anonymity.
Can I use 1 minute prep time? 지금 그냥 그거 얘기해줘. 뭐를 turn out 그 스태티스틱 얘기해봐.
그리고 쟤네가 self-help, they can do it without anonymity라고 했거든. 그런 거 얘기해. Rape victims, gay Christians 이런 사람들이 진짜 온라인으로 이름 걸고 할 수 있겠냐고. 그럼 물어봐. Rape victims.
우리 어디다 짰다 하네. 그 cross-reference 하자.
뭔 소리야?
그 cross-reference 하자고.
아니 정리를 해야 된다니까. 스피치에서. 쟤네가 self-help 그룹 anonymity 없이 할 수 있다면서. 그 아니라 rape victim 같은 애들이 온라인으로 이름 걸고 할 수 있겠냐고 물어봐. counsel rape victim. 해야 돼.
깜빡하면
안 적는 데서가 스피치 아니면.
May I begin? Okay. Opponents ready?
Yeah, we're ready.
Now, I'll use my 2 minutes to explain to you why our benefits are unique to the scope of this debate and why these benefits outweigh their harms. Now, about what they talked about the harms of cyberbullying. Now, we explained to you that anonymity, in the end, however cyberbullying does exist, is the ultimate protection from personal harassment. They gave no response to that. But the harms that they did talk about, in the end, are not in the scope of the debate, that they're not protected by the First Amendment. The harms exist because people break the law, but not necessarily because the First Amendment protects it. And we're talking about First Amendment protection of anonymity, and the end result, benefit, and harms of that protection itself. That's why we need a much more tangible harm analysis from the other side. Now, they talked about anonymous tips and that they're less credible. Now, first of all, we explained to you the end result of the actual anonymous whistleblowing that happened. The end result, the benefits that we look at, that we actually expose fraud, that we actually expose many human rights violations. These are the things that we should focus on in the debate. But furthermore, that people can choose to be non-anonymous when they make their whistleblowers, but because simply to become more credible. But that doesn't basically mean that we're forcing these people to be anonymous. They also said that self-help is possible even if you're not anonymous. We ask you, if you're a rape victim, if you're a homosexual individual in a very homophobic society, can you stand up, reveal your identity, and talk about these contents right publicly? We believe that this itself is impossible, and that they're very irresponsible to say such things. So basically, if you agree, furthermore, they talked about crimes and how fraud is basically enabled by free speech. Now, ladies and gentlemen, again, these cases of illegal fraud, basically utilizing the freedom of speech, as they try to say, in our society, is principally excluded from our law, from the Constitution. They're prosecuted. They're practically deterred by the law. I repeat that these harms exist not because the First Amendment protects it, but because these people break the law. Cyberbulliers and people who harass people and, in the end, push these people to commit suicide exist because these people are sociopaths, not because they have the tool of anonymity. We're very proud to propose